Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Orijit Sen with me, and he needs no introduction in the world of arts. He's an Indian graphic artist and designer, comics creator, and illustrator. His graphic novel Rivers of Stories, published in 1994 by Kalpavriksha, is considered as the first graphic novel of India. He's the co-founder of People Tree. This NID graduate has done several exhibitions and museum design projects in India, UK, and Russia. Orijit's comics have taken the social media by a storm. Few of them were blocked by Facebook, which led to an outpouring of support from friends, family, and followers, and was restored. It's a real honor to speak with him today. Thank you, Orijit, for giving us your time, and welcome to Audiogan. And it's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Hi, Kedar.
Sir, our topic today will be around art of dissent, and I've come up with few questions, and let's see, like how they pan out. So, first thing which I want to ask you is slightly like a global question. Like, what are your thoughts on censorship, especially self censorship in art? Because I've seen different types of work which you have done, other artists have done. How you as an artist decide to draw a line?
I think the most kind of problematic aspect of censorship is what we are witnessing in India more and more nowadays is this idea of self-censorship, where an atmosphere of fear prevails, and that prevents artists, writers, or gallerists, and others, editors, publishers, from actually speaking freely or expressing freely, and they anticipating trouble. People put a kind of stop on what they think they can say or they can't say. So it's in a way people end up censoring themselves out of a sense of fear, and that is the most insidious aspect of censorship, because censorship that is, let's say during the emergency, some newspapers were made to remove certain kind of news, or were obstructed from reporting certain things. But at least at one level, that kind of censorship is something you can fight, because that is something that is overtly being stated by the government as being censored, and that you are not allowed to say certain things or publish certain things. But self censorship is more insidious, because as such, the government cannot, or the authorities cannot be held up to answer for such censorship, because it is being done by the person or the organizations themselves. So my kind of work has been a lot about trying to open up this space and to encourage others to not censor themselves and to speak more freely.
But why do you think, like self? So there are two parts to the question. Why do you think it has grown more in these times, and what is the need for censorship, like self censorship as well?
As I said, the need for self censorship arises out of a sense of fear. So the government, or its let's say it's the authorities and their unofficial wings, that is so-called sort of the ideologues and the people who are out on the streets, the lumpen elements, and kind of the bodies of the who execute the diktat of the government, which could be official or not necessarily elected or government bodies. But for example, you would have a Karni Sena or some such organization, self-appointed, who would spread fear through saying that they represent they take the right to prevent people from saying certain things or showing certain things, or attacking, let's say, people or artworks or exhibitions. They spread this sense of fear in the public, which causes then others to shut up about what they would otherwise have spoken about. And that's how it operates. I think self censorship is something about spreading fear through various different kinds of actions in the public space, and then this gets reported and spread, and It's also done through rumors that XYZ has been arrested for putting up a Facebook post. That may be true or not true, but it's fake news often that spreads this kind of fear.
But what is the downside if artists start doing that more often just because of fear?
Downside, obviously, is that the whole space for dissent gets restricted, and as we all know, dissent is a very critical aspect of democracy. Democracy cannot function without dissent. If you take dissent out of democracy, then it's a dictatorship.
Correct.
And that is the kind of move that is the kind of space we are tending to move towards as people start to clam up and they simply say, okay, this is too dangerous for me to step into, let me stay out of it. And then we know what happens with the spread of dictatorships and fascism. And then only those who obey the government, or they belong to the majority, or they toe the majority line, those who don't speak up, they are given the space to exist, and the others are either jailed or beaten up. And we've seen this before in history. We've seen it in Italy under Mussolini. We've seen it in the Nazi Germany. We're seeing it in Israel right now, and in India, and so on. So yeah, that is the downside. I mean, basically, the society slides towards fascism.
So so there is clearly a need for dissent, but then how and where do artists can draw the line so that the work also gets communicated? The subtext is very strong, but yet it is acceptable from, say, the people who are ruling.
It's again, like I'm saying, different societies are different, and these things play out differently in each society. In the United States, for example, till today, the freedom of expression is treated. It has a kind of a much stronger position, and that exists. I mean, people in societies like America can still speak their minds, and the government cannot overtly take action against somebody who expresses his opinion. And we can see that, for example, under Donald Trump, there are many people who are protesting him and his regime and his policies, and those people still have the a certain freedom to be able to express that and to raise awareness about what's going on in the Trump administration. But in India, we have less of that. I mean, on the other end of the scale, I would say we have countries like Saudi Arabia, where I guess we don't know too much about what goes on, or even for that matter, China. And we know that the world outside doesn't even come to know too much about the kind of dissent that is being expressed in these countries, because probably they are silenced, dissenters are silenced very quickly and very effectively. In India, we don't, fortunately, I would not compare it to a situation like Saudi Arabia or China.
Yeah.
We still have a certain freedom. But that freedom, that line is a kind of gray area. And self censorship is, like I'm saying, something that allows the authorities to push the line to close the space for dissent. And in India, we as artists or writers, we need to keep fighting to keep that space, expand that space, and keep it open. And that's where my practice lies. I mean, I work in that space where, I mean, it's a gray zone. Like I'm saying, sometimes I don't know if I have crossed some border, which makes it particularly, let's say, crossed a line which might mean that I could get into serious trouble over it. And it's so, since it's a gray area, it's not, I can't know. I mean, I have to walk on that line and keep pushing that line outward, so to speak. But sometimes I may go too far. And so, like I'm saying, the atmosphere of fear is very much there. It's not as though I'm not afraid when I put out these works or when I say these things. But I I still do it because I feel it is really necessary and important to do it.
Correct. Yeah, I mean that's very interesting because the next question which I had was slightly on these lines itself. Like if I may call your work to be slightly rebellious, and as you mentioned, trying to push the line outwards. Have you ever tried to channelize your thought process in some other way, in comic or art? I mean, how has your journey of like this rebellion artwork uh, come to what the state is it is at today. So if you can just share some insights on that.
Well, there are many different, let's say, if you could call it that. There are many different streams of work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a lot of people on social media know a certain aspect of my work, which is what I create and put out on social media,
Correct.
which is usually. But I also work with comics. So yes, so this aspect of my work has been widely seen because of its kind of presence on social media and the fact that it gets shared a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, but there are other aspects of my work. For example, I do murals, I do installations, I do comics and graphic novels. Those don't get seen this widely in a sense of spreading across social media like this.
Mm-hmm.
But all those things have their own audiences and their own kind of reach in their own context.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, back in '94, I brought out my first graphic novel called River of Stories,
Correct.
and that was a very strong kind of a anti-government book about the building of the Narmada Dam and about the protests that were being taking place in the Narmada Valley under the Narmada Andolan. I was part of the Narmada Bachao Andolan at that point, as in I was involved with the movement,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was. That was about critiquing the government ideas on development. So this is well before, of course, before the time of Modi or even the BJP for that matter. The BJP had never been in power at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So although today many people think that some people tend to see my work as being very kind of specifically anti-Modi or anti-Hindutva.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, uh,
But it's
it's
more
hard for me to.
towards anti-establishment.
Yes, I mean, my work is about protesting authoritarian power and injustice, social injustice. And so, in different forms and different ways, I've kind of addressed that, or also about locating and bringing out mm, local culture, popular cultures, voices of protest, creativity in social movements and in kind of among Adivasis, Dalits, and other communities who are kind of pushed out of the mainstream. So my work is focused around all of that. So all of that, in some respect, you could think of as protest work, but it's not necessarily directly confronting a particular government or a particular uh, uh, mm, prime minister, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But then people who see only this aspect of my work think that I am basically a Modi hater, but that's not really what drives me. It's not the hatred of any particular person.
Correct.
It's about seeking justice and equality for people, and for a better for improve. I mean, I work to create a stronger democracy and a better world for us to kind of share and live in. That's really my intention.
But do you think, I mean, this is slightly going deeper into the same question. Do you think comic or arts has got the power to, obviously, I understand it has, but I want to understand your perspective as to how do you see comic or any form of art uh, enabling this kind of protest or helping communicate certain dialogue between the artist and the people?
I've always been attracted to graphic art from when I was a kid. Even in school, I used to draw my own comics. And what I've always liked, or perhaps that I'm more conscious of that now, but even as a young man in high school or in college, what I liked about comics was their kind of innate. All these comics and graphic art, they have a history of protest, of satire, of subversion, of mocking the authority, and all of that attracted me right from when I was a kid. I think it's somehow the medium has this kind of a quality interwoven into its very history and its makeup. And I was attracted to the work of great comic artists from across cultures and times. I was particularly, while in college, I came across Robert Crumb and the comics artists of the American Underground at that time, and all of that was very inspiring for me. And it's when you question, let's say, the sexual, like Crumb did, he questioned the kind of sexual habits and sexual ideas of 1960s America. At one level, all of that is political. I mean, it comes from, to my mind, politics is not just about critiquing the government or the authority. It's about critiquing authoritarianism as a force that exists in our society. And so I think the medium of the visual art medium, and especially the graphic arts medium, has that power ingrained in it, not only from the fact that it comes from a history of satire and caricature. Even, I mean, we can look at examples much before the people I'm talking about. We can look at British Punch, for example, which in the 19th century first introduced this idea of caricature and satire in a print form, reaching a wide circulation.
Correct.
So unlike, let's say, the other arts, which even today are a little bit bogged down by this idea of being exhibited in confined spaces within galleries or exhibitions or festivals, the printed arts, they are out in the public space and they can reach a much wider audience, not necessarily just the audience that goes to a art show, festival, or gallery. And so it has an innate, I feel the graphic arts have an innate power of having this mass medium aspect to it.
Correct.
So I think equally I was inspired later by the cartoons of people like R.K. Lakshman and other Indian cartoonists, Abu Abraham.
Correct.
Because when I would see initially when I was still in my teens, I didn't understand so much about politics, and I wasn't so kind of interested in how Indian newspapers and journals focus so much on the doings and saying of the politicians themselves. Whether every day the reportage would be about whether Indira Gandhi inaugurated this or said that, or opposition leader said X, Y, Z. As a teenager, I mean, all that didn't interest me so much, so I wasn't inclined to read that stuff. But I would always read Lakshman's cartoons, and somehow it would reveal to me it would kind of give me a really good insight into what's going on politically in the country without mind actually knowing it or reading all that stuff. And that's where I think is an example of the power of the graphic arts, because the combination of image, word, and metaphor, visual metaphor that is part of the language of graphic art, of cartoons, I think it very simply reveals the very nature of politics. Even to someone who doesn't necessarily is not interested in the doings of politicians, but politics affects us all. I mean, there is no such thing as, we would be fooling ourselves, those of us who say we are apolitical or we're not interested in politics, or we say politics is a dirty business. All of this is just coming from this very incorrect assumption that somehow politicians is what politics is about. Politicians are just one part of some of the players that the face of, let's say, a certain kind of parliamentary democracy that assumes great importance in our minds, and it keeps us from understanding how politics operates in reality at the level of all of us. I mean, politics is there in our families, politics is there in our communities, in our societies, and if we don't learn to start looking at that as politics as a very kind of ingrained aspect of human society, we remain, in the words of Brecht, he said that it's only a fool who thinks that he or she is above politics, or that he's not affected by politics. I mean, that itself is a kind of politics, that because you belong to a certain, let's say, privileged position in society, that you can pretend that politics doesn't impact you, but it does. Everything in the long run it does, and the way your society forms and shapes itself around you, you are a part of it, whether you like it or not.
Correct.
And so I think the graphic arts is one of those windows into this deeper understanding of politics that is available to us, and that's why we kind of, I mean, that's the sort of attraction for me as an artist to work with this medium.
Correct. I guess what you're trying to say is that politics as a concept should be looked at a much more abstract sense than the regular politician per se, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Politics is the flow and ebb and flow of power in any and all human societies and all human communities.
Correct.
And all human units, social units, are based on politics. I mean, on power.
Yeah.
I mean, the parents enjoy a certain power over the children.
Correct.
We know that we would be foolish to think that all parents exercise that power in a fair way. We grow up as children. Our first experience of the imbalance of power is in our own families. We understand that we are disciplined in certain ways, that we are prevented from doing some things we would like to do, and perhaps rightly or wrongly we face consequences, and we are powerless to oppose our parents. They are all powerful. So if we can understand politics as something that arises from a very basic, between a husband and wife there's politics, between parents and children there's politics, and then in outward circles from there we can go to the idea of community, to the idea of, and finally politics at the level of the nation, at the level of the globe. So politics exists at every level. They are interwoven into each thread, each level kind of connects to the next one and to the next one.
Correct. In fact, like I am connecting the dots here, where in recently I heard one stand-up piece by Varun Grover, where he mentioned that there is a person standing for the national anthem in the theater, not because of the respect of national anthem, but because he's scared of someone hitting him because he didn't stand for it.
Exactly.
And that was brilliantly put. And was similarly one of your work where you had done a comic strip for the national anthem. It is just मतलब वो छप गया मेरे like दिमाग में. So I wanted to understand that comic strip. What was the thought behind it, first of all, and why is it that people are getting so sensitive or get easily offended by these day-to-day issues? Any thoughts on that? You must have given some thought around it, right?
Well, I mean, this at one level one could go very deeply into a subject like that, but to put it in a concise way, I would say that it's a power play about a certain group of people, let's say, who wish to assert their primacy in the big social mix that we have in India. At the moment, let's say historically, the upper castes have always asserted their dominance over the lower castes. I mean, Indian society has been built on this sort of caste system of unequal, the unequal balance of power. And in all through our years since since we achieved independence in 1947, I think our laws have proclaimed the right of
that all Indian citizens are to be treated equally, and that everyone has equal rights and equal power. The reality is not the case, and there's always jostling for power, and the classes and the communities that traditionally held power do not want to let go of those traditional powers and privileges.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, as democracy works and it helps, democracy has worked partially in this country. It has helped certain communities to rise up from their previous position, but it hasn't equally helped everyone. And I think the frustrations of this sort of imbalances of power that not only the practice of democracy in this country, but also the spread of information and technology, modernizing of things, has led to a breakdown of the older systems of power. At the same time, there's a strong effort to maintain those old power balances by the ones who enjoyed those privileges and powers. So it's a conflict. It's a ongoing conflict that helps, our society moves forward in like 2 steps forward and then 1 step back and 2 steps sideways, and that's how we progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conflicts that come up are really from that. I mean, when you really look at it, when you say, let's say, the ideas of feminism, they challenge the first come the ideas. The ideas themselves are what cause. They immediately challenge patriarchy. They challenge the system of let's say, patriarchal privileges that we have taken for granted over the centuries. And then when feminism comes around, it poses a challenge to those patriarchal ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that happens, there's a backlash from and the patriarchal systems, the people who are the male, all the men who have been enjoying those privileges, seeing it as a natural order of things. Suddenly, when they are confronted, and it seems not so natural anymore that that the wife should always stay at home and look after the children, that threatens the life of the man who would rather have that system continue in the same way.
Correct.
And so once these ideas enter into the domain, there's always become the conflict of ideas first.
Mm-hmm.
And as those ideas take a root, or they spread, or they become more,
they manifest in some form or the other.
Manifest.
Yeah.
Then the opposition also manifests itself in physical forms. I mean, which can come down, as we have witnessed in India and are continuing to witness. I mean, from rapes to attacks on women to strictures trying to forbid women from doing certain things or wearing certain kind of clothes. And so all of this is the pushback from patriarchy. I mean, patriarchy is trying to push back. I mean, it's threatened by the ideas of feminism. So similarly with it's not Hinduism versus, let's say, secularism or whatever. It's actually, if you really, we set up India as a democratic, socialist, secular republic.
Mm-hmm.
But today what we are witnessing is a huge pushback from a large number of Hindu, typically upper caste people, who see that the idea of secularism is a threat to their traditional privilege and to their idea that this is a
Correct.
majority country of Hindus, and therefore secularism is a threat to all those positions of power and privilege that have been enjoyed so far.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are witnessing is, of course, again, a pushback against that. It's a pushback against, and it's built upon by people who wish to harness that power, like the BJP today. It'll stoke this, let's say, it'll create and build upon and encourage this sort of Islamophobia that many people may have harbored quietly, but in the past it was considered not okay to not just not act upon your Islamophobia, but even it was not okay in most circles to express Islamophobia.
Correct.
But today, more and more, the Hindu right wing is trying to say that this is okay. Please come up and express your Islamophobia. It's okay if you attack some Muslims. The Muslims should be shown their place. All of this is being done in order to encourage the forces that push back against the idea of a secular country.
Correct.
So
In fact,
yeah, so
I did one interview with Atul Pethe, who's a Marathi playwright, and he also mentioned a similar point that it's like the second point of violence is which the current government is trying to build in as he's trying to create the optics around it, saying that it is okay to do so. I mean, first of all, violence is created, and the second is it's okay, which is which is slightly alarming. But yeah, coming back,
and that is where the guys who, let's say the Gaurakshaks who participate in violence or mob lynchings,
correct,
then they go unpunished, or they are made out to be somehow heroes who are defending the idea of the Hindu faith or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is important for them to spread the message that this is okay, this is what is right. I mean,
correct.
this is how you should behave, kind of thing. So it's actually kind of trying to dismantle in the past, when the ideas of secularism was trying to be established, it would have at least, even though people may have had similar ideas, deep inside they would have held some Islamophobic thoughts. I mean, they don't like to mix with Muslims, or Muslims are dirty, or whatever. I mean, they would have had their kind of bigoted ideas, but they would not be able to express it, and they would not be able to act upon it. And the whole project of secularism was to slowly dismantle this bigotry itself, to say that no community is innately bad or good, that each community has the right to live in the way it does and practice its own religion and its own communal, live as a community in the way that they do with their own customs and all of that.
Correct.
Now that is being challenged. I mean, that is being officially by the government as well as unofficially by all these other, senas and goons and Gaurakshaks. They're challenging that idea, saying that no, it is okay to do that. It is right to actually attack somebody else's beliefs, and it's right to not allow people to practice their own faith or to practice their own customs. That it's okay to break relationships between people in a certain way.
Correct.
And set examples for. So again, which also ties up to this idea of creating a sense of fear, to try to shut people who are saying the opposite, to put fear into them. So, so if I am a vocal anti Hindutva person, then I should be made to feel afraid of expressing my views rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, you put it very nicely that it's now officially allowed. That's a very important word, that officially is coming here. But Orijit, I would like to just come back to and conclude with one last question in terms of connecting back to art. What are your thoughts on the art of dissent? I mean, what would you tell artists of the current time who are in such a situation that there is very low threshold for free speech? Recently, these activists got house arrest and stuff like that. So, what would be your thoughts and what would be your just thoughts on overall producing more art which has a dissent, or which any
Well, I mean, at the first and foremost, I would say that it's very critical for us to now not give in to this pressure and to this kind of atmosphere of fear that is being created. But we must resist that, and we must fight back against that. And it's very critical for us to create even more art as artists, and even more expressions of dissent at various levels. And we must kind of, I think, be more united in looking out for each other as well. I mean, for example, I have sometimes, like I was saying, I don't necessarily, when I'm always trying to push the line, I may not always be the best judge to know that I've maybe gone too far, that maybe I'm endangering myself beyond the reasonable limit. but when that happens on Facebook and so Twitter, on Instagram, I actually have friends who have become like in a way my watchdogs, as in not people who are censoring me, but people who are sympathetic to me and are just there to warn me that maybe this is this is too much. I mean, tone this down, or just be safe here. Maybe this we don't want to lose your voice now. You shouldn't do something which will make them silence you for good.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it's good. That's the kind of thing, I mean, that we need to watch out for each other, and we need to kind of push this fight forward. And I always tell people also that it's not only just about this government. I mean, these changes are, in a way, a much larger societal changes that we're witnessing. Just even if tomorrow, by some chance in 2019, Modi government goes out, it doesn't mean that our battle is won or the job is done. Actually, our society has changed, has been changing, and this government has perhaps pushed it very deeply in one direction. And we cannot sit back and say, "Oh, the job is done now. Modi government is gone." No, I mean, I think we're going to face this for years to come, and so we can't. We need to be very vigilant. We also need to, like I'm saying, be united and watch out for each other. And we need to kind of take care of ourselves and of each other in this kind of a situation. But we have to, which means if I know that I have many people who are standing in solidarity with me, it gives me a lot more courage. I mean, if I feel I'm alone, then I feel obviously much more scared. So by giving support to each other and standing in solidarity with each other, we are able to open our voices more and to give each other the strength to be more active and more kind of and dissent more loudly, because we need that. That is the need of the hour, that we have to, just as the crackdown and the pressure becomes more, is when we have to raise our voices more.
Correct.
And, so this is the situation today.
Yeah.
And suddenly killing of Gauri Lankesh or something shouldn't make us, all of us,
afraid,
close our mouths. You know, that, oh my God, look at what happened to her. No, this is when we all need to unite and speak up more. And this is where I feel that this is the message I want to give out, and this is what I try and do with my work, as in keep showing people, look, I'm here, I'm saying this, I'm standing by what I say, I'm not retreating, and that I know that it gives many others the courage also to be open and speak up.
Sure, definitely. I mean, on that note, I would like to say that may everyone get that courage as you have today, and produce more artists who are drawing, who are expressing themselves and having a dissent. Cool. I think this is a good note to end this. Thank you, Orijit, once again. Thanks a lot for giving us your time and sharing some brilliant insights.
Thank you.
And I wish to have you again on AudioGAN, maybe in person when I'm in Goa. And yeah, you can, like, I tell listeners to follow Orijit Sen on Instagram as well, to get insights into some brilliant artwork and also some political messages as a subtext.
Great.
Cool. Thank you, sir, again.
Thanks very much, sir. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir, once again for really giving your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on AudioGAN.com. Till then, bye.